Welcome viewers. Today we are on the second and last lesson for Unit 2. Last lesson, we talked about using inductive reasoning, where we had to look for a pattern and then make a conjecture or a guess based on the pattern. And today we're going to make a conclusion based on facts and definitions and laws of logic. That's called deductive reasoning. We're going to need conditional statements. Again, a logical statement with a hypothesis and a conclusion. So the first law of logic is called the law of detachment. If the hypothesis of a true conditional statement is true, then the conclusion is also true. So for example, if I look up here in purple, I wrote, if A, then B. So if you have a statement that, oh shoot, why is my screen? Come back. If you have a statement that looks something like this, where you have a statement, if A then B, and then the next statement is just a statement, and it says that the hypothesis of that conditional statement is true. So it just says A. You can then conclude, you can say therefore, and that's therefore we write with 3 dots, and there's our symbol for therefore. Therefore, we can conclude B. And that's it. It's so simple, people find it very difficult. So for example, if I take Spuds for a walk, Spuds is one of my dogs, then he pees. Okay, the next statement would be, I take Spuds for a walk. What can we conclude? Therefore, he pees. That's it. So let's take a look at an example. If you have two angles, if two angles have the same measure, then they are congruent. So notice what comes after the if is the hypothesis. What comes after the then is the conclusion. So there's your if then. So there's your if A, then B. Now if this next statement just says A, then we can conclude, therefore we can conclude B. Let's see if it does. You know that the measure of angle A is equal to the measure of angle B. Well, does that say what the hypothesis says? Two angles have the same measure? Yeah, it pretty much does. So what can we conclude? They are congruent. And I'm just going to write they are congruent, but you could also be more specific and say the measure of angle B and the measure of angle B, measure of angle A and the measure of angle B are equal. Or you could say angle A is congruent to angle B. Now this next one is just an example where we have our first statement is not a conditional statement. So we're not going to go ahead and use the law of detachment, because in the law of detachment, the hypothesis has to be a true conditional statement. Now we could rewrite that example into a conditional statement, but this one is actually a biconditional, so I'm not going to get into that. So I'm just going to write not a conditional statement. So we are not going to be using the law of detachment. And again, we could change it to a conditional statement, but then we could possibly use the law of detachment. All right, the next law is called the law of syllogism. We also call it the chain rule. And if you learned about the transitive property back in Algebra 1, this might look familiar. So if hypothesis, and they usually say use P, Q, and R. If hypothesis P, then conclusion Q. There's your first if then. Second statement is also an if then. If hypothesis Q, then conclusion R. Now, if both of those statements are true, we can conclude, therefore, if hypothesis P, then conclusion R. So basically cutting out the middlemen here. What comes after the them in the first statement is the same as what comes after the if in the second statement. And we're rewriting that. So let's go to an example. If we go to the movies, then we will also go to dinner. So this looks like if A, then B, something else. If we go to dinner, and that's B. Then we will go to bunfish. That's something different, so we'll identify that as C. Therefore, if we go to the movies, then we will go to bonefish. That's it. That's all the law of syllogism says. So let's see if we can practice. So I just wrote that for you. Okay, so if possible, use the law of syllogism to write the conditional statement that follows from each pair of true statements. So if Ron eats lunch today, then he will eat a sandwich. So far that's if A, then B. Okay. If Ron eats a sandwich, well, that's going to be B, right? If B, then he will drink a glass of milk. Well, that's something completely different. So far, we've got if A, then B, and then the next statement is if B, then C. Well, we can conclude, therefore, if Ron eats lunch today, and that's A, then C, he will drink a glass of milk. Nothing about him eating the sandwich. That is the middleman has been cut out. So we're going to be if x squared is greater than 36, then x squared is greater than 30. Okay? If x is greater than 6, then x squared is greater than 36. Well, let's just hold on for a second, because if I were to go ahead and start this like I did the last one, and call this A, call this B, and then go to the next statement, and wait a second, x is greater than 6, we haven't seen that yet. So I'd have to call that something else. I'd have to call that C. Then x squared is greater than 36. Haven't we already seen that? We called that A. Well, what's happening here is, and this happens sometimes, they switch the two statements order. So if I were to start with the second statement, watch what would happen. And you can use those letters. You can use whatever letters you want. If I start with the second statement as my first statement, if A, then B, and then I go to my second statement, if B, then C, you can see that it does follow the law of syllogism. So, but the final conclusion, therefore, if x is greater than 6, then x squared is greater than 30, because it cuts out the middleman. So that one's tricky. Sometimes they do switch those two. So just be careful when if it's not following the pattern, flip them around, see if it works. This one ends up not working at all, because if you start labeling if A, then B, you notice the second one, if, oh, that's A again, and then C. That does not follow the law of syllogism. So we're going to write not possible. Okay. So go ahead and pause it, try these two problems, and I'll show you the answers. All right, so number 1, using the law of detachment, what statement can you make? A is acute. Because in this statement here, they are just stating the hypothesis. The measure of angle A is between 0 and 90. The measure of angle A is 38 degrees, so it's between 0 and 90. And then the second one is the law of syllogism. So we're moving on to symbolic notation. So one way we can represent conditional statements is with a P, an arrow, and a Q. So P represents the hypothesis and Q represents the conclusion. So we're going to go ahead and say, let P be it is not raining, and Q be the weather is good. And we're going to see if we can't write these conditional, converse, inverse, and contrapositives and write them out. So P, they said, is not raining. So if it is not raining. All right, so go ahead and fill the rest of this out. So press pause and then come back and I'll show you the answers. Okay, here they are. Let me move the bar here. Okay, so if it is not raining, then the weather is good. The converse, and you have to know, if I ask you to write the converse, You have to know to switch the hypothesis and the conclusion. That's it. You're not making them negative, nothing. You're just switching them. So if the weather is good, then it's not raining. For the inverse, you have to know that you're making the original conditional, the if-then. You're just making them both negative, not the opposite. So the opposite of it is not raining is it is raining. And the opposite of the weather is good is the weather isn't good. You wouldn't say the weather is bad. You would say the weather is not good. And then contrapositive, the weather isn't good. So that's the opposite of the conclusion. And then it is raining. That's the opposite of the hypothesis. Okay. All right, so we're going to do some practice here. Oh, no. Why can't I move this? Okay, so the next two symbols that we're going to learn about are and or. And the and, you can just draw a line straight across it. Oops, that line was white and way too big. Let's try that again. If you draw a line through it, it looks like a capital A. So that's the way I remember that the upside down V is the and the V is the or. Okay, so the P and then this caret here, you can think of that as an A, right? So that's P and Q. And then this other one below it is P or Q. So go ahead and push pause and see if you can write these two sentences. So you want to write P and Q, and then you want to write P or Q. All right, so here we go. So it is not raining and the weather is good. And then it is raining or the weather is good. Now, we're not talking about the truth value of these because some of these are true, some of these are not true, some of these are maybe. We're just learning how to write with symbols. Okay, and I think press pause again, see if you can do these. You're going to translate them into symbolic form. So math is not fun. So Q represents math is fun. And sorry, P represents math is fun, and Q represents math is difficult. So go ahead and see if you can write those and translate the following from symbolic form to written form, and then I'll show you the answers. All right, here we go. Math is not fun is squiggly P. So that's not P. That's how you write not. You put a little squiggly in front of it. Math is fun or math is difficult. So that is the V. And then math is not fun, so we have to put a squiggly in front of the P. That means not P. And this is the and sign, is, math is difficult. And so then we're just going to go ahead and write this out. P, math is fun, and math is not difficult. And then not Q is math is not difficult, or math is fun. And that's all, folks. All right, peace out.